Bingen and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Bingen, David Janes here with you. Willie Donick will be along shortly. We are live at Bridgestone Arena. Predators versus Islanders tonight. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6. As always, right here on 1025, 1063 The Game. And I'm in a giving mood, Derek Mason.
All right, let's do it.
So be caller number 3 at 615-737-1025. You will win a family 4-pack of tickets to see the Nashville Sounds host the Memphis Redbirds at First Horizon Park on Thursday. So be caller number 3 at 615-737-1025, and you will win a family 4-pack of tickets to see the Nashville Sounds take on the Memphis Redbirds at First Horizon Park this Thursday. First pitch scheduled for 6:35 p.m. So be caller number 3 and take your family to see some baseball. So, Derek Mason, I have an admission. And I might have admitted this on the show before, so it may not be a new admission. And it's not necessarily something that I'm proud of, but I embrace who I am.
You're reintroducing us to your admission.
I am.
There you go.
By the way, fortunately, my wife did not hear that I blamed her for Duke's loss the other night.
Well, you just said it again.
By bringing it back up, it may come to bite me in the behind. But it does have to do with the game on Saturday. I am a petty sports fan.
Okay.
I am a petty sports fan. I do not want the team that beat my team to succeed.
Wow.
I know there are sports fans out there. If your team loses to another team in the playoffs, you might want that team to win the championship, right? Because, hey, there's no shame in losing to the champion. I'm not like that. I want the team that beat my team to lose. And although the loss on Saturday still stings, man, oh man, did I enjoy what happened last night.
Wow.
Man, oh man, did I enjoy Houston blowing a 12-point lead in the national championship game as Florida wins the national championship 65-63. Now it doesn't make me feel all the way better, but it makes me feel just a little bit better.
But they beat your team, so it still doesn't matter.
But them beating my team ultimately didn't matter either because they did not win the championship and they lost in similar fashion.
But
I'm telling you, I'm not proud of this, Derek Mason. I'm telling you, I am a petty sports fan. So I was not pulling for Houston last night. I was pulling for Florida. But the way that Houston lost, it warmed the cockles of my heart just a little bit. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not proud of it. I'm just telling you, I am a petty sports fan. And I'm not afraid to admit it.
At least you are admitting your faults.
Who says it's a fault?
And the only way you can get over them is to first admit them. So I want to congratulate you on admitting what I look at as a petty fault of yours. That game last night, it was everything. Wasn't high scoring. I'm not sure what the over-under was in that game, the Houston and Florida game. But I didn't expect it to be that low scoring. But both teams, in particular Houston, played great defense in the first half. Neither team really could hit a basket. If Houston could hit two or three more three-pointers, they would have blown that game wide open. But Florida continued to play. What I loved about that game, they allowed them to play basketball. It wasn't, I think you touched them, so I'm going to call a foul. No, they let them play a physical brand of basketball I don't think we've seen in a long time outside of what the SEC did this season. But they allowed them to play basketball in both halves. And I just thought Florida, even though they haven't won a championship in a while, they seem like the team that knew exactly what to do and how to play in that championship moment. And Houston looked like the team that had never been in that situation before. That's basically what it looked like. It looked like as the game started to get tighter, Houston started to get tighter, and Florida just relaxed and played through it. Maybe it's because of what Florida's been through, having to overcome double-digit deficits.
Get this.
Uh-huh.
According to ESPN, Florida trailed by 9+ points in the second half in the Elite Eight, the national semifinal, and the national championship. 9+ points they trailed in the second half in their final 3 games of this tournament.
Yeah, they play like the more tested team. And Houston played like a team that was trying not to lose instead of trying to win. Their last 4 possessions were all turnovers. I think the last 3 or 4 possessions were all turnovers. And I feel bad for the kid at Houston. I mean, his last 2 possessions ended in turnovers for Houston. And man, oh man, that kid, he had played great throughout the tournament for them. But it came down to those last
Emmanuel Sharp.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sharp. It came down to those last 2 possessions. He turned the ball over on 2 possessions, 2 key possessions.
Mm-hmm.
The last one being the sort of death nail. If you're going to take the shot, take the shot. You can't, in a moment like that, because I've been in those situations where you need it. So either you get it done or you play fast. And if you don't make it, you don't make it. But to do something like that, man, that was tough. I hated the way that game ended because I wanted, whether Houston had made that shot or not, I wanted to see a shot get up and hit the basket. And because of the moment and how big it was, guys like Emmanuel Sharp and Houston, they just dwindled.
One texter says, please, let's don't talk about it. You're twisting the knife. Houston is my alma mater.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But I'm sure
you might be sorry, Derek Mason. I'm not
You're
sorry.
Rejoicing.
I'm not rejoicing necessarily, but to this unnamed texter, we can live in the misery together now.
Yes.
We can live in the misery together now. You've experienced what I experienced a few days ago. We can wallow together. Again, I am not proud of the fact that I'm a petty sports fan.
Misery loves company?
Precisely.
There we go.
Precisely. Misery loves company. Jeff on our text line says, I only watched the second half, and it seemed like every time Houston breathed on Florida, they called a foul. They called 19 fouls on Houston to 10 on Florida. And look, in these sorts of games, you're going to get reaction like this, the discrepancy in foul calls. Ultimately, I tend to ignore those things. I don't put a huge amount of stock in the discrepancy of foul calls. One thing that I learned about Florida in this tournament, I just read, they trailed by 9+ points in the second half in the Elite Eight, in the Final Four, the national semifinal, and in the national championship game. That team was clutch. That team knew how to win. They were the team of destiny, it felt like. Even go back to the game against UConn in the second round. They were on the ropes against UConn, and Walter Clayton bailed them out. I believe he was the most outstanding player in the tournament. And so he certainly earned it. So congratulations to Florida. The SEC's first national title in basketball in 13 years since Kentucky in 2012. So for all of the talk about the SEC being the preeminent conference in college basketball, they end up with the championship. So I think that talk was justified. Congratulations to all you Gators fans out there. For you Cougars fans, let's wallow in it together. Let's get down in the mud Let's get out our tissues, put on some sappy movie. Let's cry it out together. So, Derek, I was reading
Yeah.
Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated, their senior NFL writer, and he released his weekly column. And the lead note is about the Tennessee Titans and Cam Ward. And I thought it was pretty interesting what he wrote. He said, quote, take the Tennessee Titans' decision to cancel their Wednesday workout with Shedeur Sanders for what it is. Plainly, my sense is it's a powerful sign of the conviction they've built in Cam Ward's worthiness as the first pick in, it says 17 days, but we're closer to that by now. It also backs up what I've heard, that it would take an historic offer to move them to trade the pick and pass on the Miami quarterback. Albert Breer continues, I think we'll look back on this as being pretty remarkable in that the Titans came into the process not wanting to predetermine anything with the first pick. They wanted to do 30 visits and combine interviews and have a big pro day presence for each of the 4 guys under consideration, Ward, Sanders, Travis Hunter, and Abdul Carter, and do private workouts with, at a minimum, the quarterbacks. Now, a trade was always unlikely, mostly because of the makeup of the draft class. With the Titans roster being what it is, their revamped brass couldn't afford to come out of April without a blue chip centerpiece, be it a quarterback or otherwise, since there appear to be just 2 non-quarterbacks at that level in the class, with a significant drop-off after Hunter and Carter come off the board. The value of picks at numbers 4, 5, and below is diminished significantly, which would also kill any appetite the Titans have to drop past that line. So there was a natural limitation all along to what the Titans would be willing to do with the pick, but that all appears to be moot now anyway with how Ward has emerged. That was Albert Breer at SportsIllustrated.com.
And look, I would tend to lean more toward what he's saying. I think the visit it seemed like the about face for Brinker. I think that visit to Colorado signified that, listen, we're taking Cam Ward.
You mean Brinker deciding to go to the Colorado Pro Day when he did not intend to in the first place?
Absolutely. I think he said, well, let me just give this one more look. And if there's any sort of trepidation or anything that's going to give me pause, then okay. But if I go here and I don't feel that feeling, and I'm more resolute than anything, then I am going to talk to Shedeur. I am going to talk to Travis while they're there, respectfully talk to Deion and tell him, listen, this is going to be our guy, meaning Cam Ward. I think he went there to basically solidify. Like Cam Ward told him at the pro day, I'm solidifying it.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Colorado's pro day to say, listen, I've made my decision. And out of respect for the players, because Travis Hunter was an option as well. So out of respect for the players and the coach, I'm going to tell them we're canceling everything. So I don't want you to think that, oh, get yourself all ready to come here to visit Nashville when that's not going to happen. I know the decision that I'm making. So, listen, whether you believe that they are still like shopping the pick or not, I think it's coming out that I think it's starting to reveal itself that it's going to take a deal like we've never seen before for them to move off that number 1 pick.
Do you know what the betting odds for the number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward, do you know what the betting odds are for Cam Ward to be the number 1 pick?
What are they?
Minus 20,000. Minus 20,000.
Wow.
Those are the betting odds.
Vegas is telling you.
Abdul Carter, by the way, is second at plus 1,800. Travis Hunter at plus 5,000. Shedeur Sanders at plus 6,500. But Cam Ward, minus 20,000.
Vegas is telling you, like, this is a done deal. And again, unless they give the Titans, like, I'm not going to say, oh, it's 100%. Like, they're going to. If somebody come and say, we want to give you this, and that, Yeah, you would be a fool not to pause if you're being presented with a deal that you didn't think existed, or you didn't think anyone would go that far. Wouldn't you have to then pause? Like, okay, can we really do this? So I'm not going to say that they won't, but all signs pointed toward Brinker going there to be more resolute on the decision they had already made, and to tell them, both Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, also Deion Sanders, the head coach, this is going to be our guy.
Trey is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, with a comment on the national title game last night. Trey, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, how y'all doing today?
Good.
Doing good.
Hey, I just want to say, what I seen last night, man, that was big boy basketball all the way down to the end. And it was exciting to watch. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Elijah Martin. He's from my hometown. He went to a little high school, North Pike. And if it wasn't for his 4 points in the end, they probably would have lost. And I think he was the X factor. And y'all have a good day. Elijah Martin, y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks, Trey.
Thank you, Trey. Appreciate it.
And I'm trying to find these right now. I saw the ratings for the national semifinal games. Actually, here's an update as of an hour ago. Perfect. Per Nielsen final national data, Saturday's Final Four viewership increases to 15.5 million viewers, with a peak of 20.7 million viewers. Florida, Auburn, 14.8 million viewers. Now the best early game since 2015. Houston, Duke, 16.3 million viewers. So, to Trey's point, that game last night was certainly exhilarating. The score was low, but the game was exciting. The games on Saturday were memorable for the wrong reasons for some of us, for the right reasons for others. But I think the ratings for those games go to show you that the lack of a quote-unquote Cinderella was overblown. At the end of the day, you had the 4 best teams in college basketball playing for the national title. And yes, it's always exciting when a Loyola Chicago sneaks in there, or a Florida Atlantic, or a Butler, or even if you want to throw it all the way back to 20 years ago, George Mason.
Yes.
It's always fun when one of those teams gets in there, right? And that's part of the allure of March Madness, is you get to know schools, you get to know teams and players that you didn't know. Like, for example, when George Mason, which is in Fairfax, Virginia, just outside of Washington, when George Mason went to the Final Four, that was the year I was applying for college. And I applied to George Mason because I wanted to be near DC, and I wanted to have sort of a fail-safe in case I didn't get into the schools in DC. I wanted to be close to DC, so I applied to George Mason. It was also a state school, so, tuition is lower, all of those things. I was concerned that I wasn't going to get in because they were going to have a rush of applications, because people were like, George Mason, where's that? I want to go there. And that's part of the excitement of March Madness. But look, you had the 4 best teams in college basketball playing for a national title. Florida certainly earned it. And I think the ratings show that, hey, people want to watch good basketball regardless of the caliber of teams. So I do think this idea that, hey, I don't want the NCAA tournament to become all power conference teams. Well, I think the ratings in some form show that people were still incredibly invested despite the chalkiness of the tournament.
People just want to see good basketball. And this year, if you looked at all the number 1 seeds, if they made it, you knew that it was going to be a good game. It was a good game in the Final Four, both teams, and it ended up being a low-scoring but exciting game. Even though that game was low-scoring, it felt like it was moving at a much more hectic pace than what the score indicated. So, the fans got what they wanted. At least half of them because, Florida won and the other half may not so because Houston lost. But all in all, it was a hell of a game.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let us know your thoughts on the national title game last night. Florida comes back to defeat Houston. Let us know about Cam Ward. We're going to get into Cam Ward as we have been. We will continue to get into Cam Ward, and we will bring Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, into that conversation coming up next at 615-737-1025. But tune into Sports Talk 8:30 tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on Memphis. Pregame begins at 6:20, and the first pitch is at 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. D. Mace Fingan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Mingan joined on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, by the one and only Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst. Tim, the Titans made the decision over the weekend to cancel their private workout with Shedeur Sanders, which was scheduled for this week. And the consensus is that this all but assures that Cam Ward is going to be the number one overall pick to the Titans. Should I leave a little wiggle room for Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi to be some sort of mad scientists, evil geniuses that they are playing 4D chess when everybody else is playing checkers to drum up interest for this number one pick? Or is it cut and dry, Cam Ward to Tennessee in 2.5 weeks?
I think it's cut and dry because I think it's one thing to just look at, just like the recent actions, but I also think if you go back and look at, just like what the team has done through the entire process, like not being involved in, veteran, quarterbacks that were hitting the market, the emphasis on the offensive line. Like, I just think when you look at all of the data points combined, it just really points to the fact that, look, they were probably going to go with a young quarterback, meaning, draft him one high. And then in that process, I think there's been a clear distinction, and probably a consensus around the league of who the top quarterback is. And once you picking one overall, it's pretty clear what the decision ends up being.
I find this to be interesting, Tim. I'm looking at betting odds for the NFL draft, and of course you take those with a grain of salt. But the betting favorite to draft Shedeur Sanders right now is the New Orleans Saints, who have the 9th overall pick in the NFL draft. Could you see Shedeur Sanders falling that far? And what would have to transpire above that in order to make that happen?
Well, I think you could easily see him falling that far. I also think that it's realistic to see him fall to 12 or maybe even beyond that. And look, I'm saying this and I'm not saying it. I think I've used the comparison with you guys before of like my comp was Andy Dalton. And, I say that. I think Andy Dalton's going into year like 17 or 18. He's had an amazing career. So I think sometimes it kind of, depending on how, you view Andy Dalton, how I view Andy Dalton is a guy who took a team to the playoffs, for 4 years, who has had a remarkable career, like a short list of quarterbacks that have thrown 250 touchdowns in their careers. But I don't think anybody would really ever say that if you could redraft, Andy Dalton would have been a top 12 pick. So, could I see it happening? Yeah, I could. What would have to happen? Look, I think teams would have to view him physically as somebody that is a good player, is a good prospect, but not necessarily having elite traits that you would use, at the very top of the draft. And then, the other things that would happen, the Browns, go with a edge rusher, the Giants go with Travis Hunter. And then you get into that, that area of the draft where, you have teams that aren't looking for quarterbacks. And so I think it's very possible that there's a pretty significant slide from some of the early projections.
We're talking to Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst. Tim, I was watching ESPN yesterday, and I believe one of the discussions that was coming out of Shedeur Sanders' pro day was his habit of patting the ball. Now, I need you as the ex-quarterback to explain this to me. Will it help or hurt Shedeur Sanders in the NFL? And what is the issue that people have with padding the football?
The people's issue with padding the football is it's an indicator that the ball is going to be thrown, right? So if, people talk about, Dan Marino had this super quick release, like from the time that his left hand separated from the football to when the ball left his hand was so quick. And so a lot of times when guys pat the football, that's a signal to defensive backs of, okay, quarterback's going to throw the football. I'm going to start breaking on it. Now, what I would say is there have been a lot of successful quarterbacks that have patted the football. Tom Brady would be one of them. Now, I do think that, the ability to pat the football and not pat the football at the same time is actually an advantage for quarterbacks. So, I saw some of the indications about, or the comments about it. I don't know that, I don't know. I would not describe the discussion as like being detailed enough about what it was. Like Brady's a great example of somebody that patted the football, and at times he would use the pat to his advantage. He would pat the football, separate his left hand from the football, knowing full well like he wasn't going there with the football to move the defense. So that's why I think really the answer isn't, hey, do you pat the football or do you not pat the football? It's, do you have the ability to do both? So I don't think in a pro day environment, a guy patting the football really is even worth discussing.
I think it's just when you can't find something, you make up something. Because during the season, he was doing the same exact things, but those things were not talked about. Even at the end of the season, no one brought up the fact that, him patting the ball would be a disadvantage for him at the next level. I think it gets to a point where it's almost, dang it, I need to find something negative, or I need something negative to come out of this workout, because everything that I've seen and everything that he said has been pointing toward positive.
Yeah, I think that I guarantee you go. I mean, I haven't done this with other pro days, but I guarantee you go back and look at Drake May's pro day and see him pat the football. I guarantee you could see, Lamar Jackson pat the football, or various other quarterbacks. It's a very common thing. Not everyone does it all the time. Not everyone does it on every throw. Like I think it's almost, I don't know. Like I'm shocked that it's become such a talking point, especially when you're talking about t-shirt and shorts.
Exactly.
Look, I think the bigger issue is like, it's like if a receiver were to run a 4.7 and you go like, oh my gosh, like we thought this guy was this amazing prospect. Look at what he did in college. But man, that's his 40 time, or, that's what he jumped. And, does he have the elite physical traits that you typically want to see in a receiver that's taken this high in the draft? Like those to me are legitimate things. And when it comes up with Sugar Sanders, like, I think it matters. Like, I think I said this to you guys. Like, why is Jackson Dart getting some of the love that he's getting now? When it's not like he was some like mysterious prospect, but it's because like the physical tools in terms of how fast he is, kind of how twitchy he is, how big he is, like what the ball looks like coming out of his hands in terms of how hard he can throw the football, like all those things, like those things align more with a guy that ends up being a first round draft pick. Like they do. And so like, that's why I think that's the difference.
We'll talk with Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst and head coach of the Ensworth Tigers. Now, Tim, what do you think is more likely to happen? That we get more than 2 to 3 quarterbacks drafting in the first round, or that we get only one drafting in the first round?
I definitely think there'll be more than one. And I just say that because I do think, like, just say Cam, goes one. When you get into like that, let's just say, and everybody slipped. And so now you get into the 20s. Like the idea of having a 5th-year option on a quarterback, to me, is way too enticing, especially if you're a team that's picking later. Like, I make this up, like, where the Rams at 21 or something like that. Like the Rams are at 21. Maybe they move a little bit or whatever it is. And they say, like, all right, well, now, like, Matthew Stafford's going to be our starter, but like, at least we get this guy in the system. He's around Stafford. Stafford is toying around, like, how much longer he's going to play or not, or whatever the situation may be. Like, our clock on evaluating this quarterback is still okay. Like, that's the beauty of, from a team's perspective, of having that 5th-year option, on the contract for every first-round draft pick. It's really the Lamar Jackson situation in Baltimore. Like, that was really the brilliance of probably was Ozzie Newsome at the time. I think that was his last draft.
Yep.
The brilliance of Ozzie to say, like, let's move back in. Let's take this guy that people are talking about maybe as a receiver. Let's have the 5th-year option on him in case he's a little bit more developmental than we think that he is. And, he was right.
Can you see teams starting to sort of trend that way of drafting, say like a Jalen Milroe, drafting a Jalen Milroe late in the first round, knowing that we don't need him to be anywhere near the starting, position for at least the next two to three, almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then on that 3rd year, you hope that he's developed enough where he can now be your starting quarterback.
Yeah, and I think that's the, it was the term for it. Like, those were luxury picks, right? Like, basically anything after pick 22, they were kind of viewed as hey, like, that's the luxury pick. Remember when Tim Tebow was coming out? Because I think that, I think in theory, some teams have kind of already bought into it. When Tebow was coming out, it was like, well, he's that luxury pick. Like, what are we talking about? In terms of, taking a quarterback at this spot that is clearly a developmental prospect. And really, like, if you were to look at it, like we've talked about, some of the time on task issues that some of these quarterbacks have had coming out. So, like, take Anthony Richardson, who was pick 3, who had 393 attempts coming out of college. Like, he really probably should have been a luxury pick guy, a guy that, like, you didn't have to play his rookie year, like a guy that you could be like, all right, look, you're going to redshirt, man. Like, that's what you're going to do. And then year 2, like, we're going to start to get this thing rolling. You're probably a little bit better off. And like, I think that's the case with quarterback. I think that's the case, like, in a lot of professions. Like sometimes you just get, like, thrown to the wolves, like in the big leagues. Like, it's okay, to have to work your way up through the minors sometimes. Like, I do think that that's more beneficial, to certain guys based on their experience, rather than thinking, okay, look, you're expecting to be the guy right away, even though, like, you haven't played a ton of football at the collegiate level. We're going to draft you at the top, 10 pick, and we expect you to save this organization.
Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, joining us on D-Mates, Fingan, and Donick, as he does every Tuesday. Tim, great stuff as always. We'll talk next week.
Sounds good too, fellas.
Yep.
Tim Hasselbeck joining us on the program. 615-737-1025. Your thoughts on what Tim Hasselbeck had to say. We will react as well. On the other side, 615-737-1025. Speaking of 1025, The Game and Green River Whiskey have teamed up to give away tickets to see Lainey Wilson at Bridgestone Arena in the all-inclusive Eurostone Club on Thursday, October 2nd. Tune in to Chase and Big Joe tomorrow morning during the 9 a.m. hour for the keyword to text in for your chance to win tickets. Green River Whiskey. Sit back, relax, and bourbon. Green River Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky. Alcohol/volume varies by product. Please drink responsibly.
Titans cancel Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter's private workouts. Respectfully, it's actually a respectful move. These
Mhm.
young men have played
right
a
move.
whole lot of football. They've trained. They just had pro day, all of it. And so if you don't intend to draft them, either of them with that first overall pick, why put them through another private workout, have them prepared, give them installs? It's not the right thing to do. And to be totally honest, selfishly, from an organizational standpoint, you don't want to be flying back out and have to spend a day or two of your time and take it away from other things in the organization. What are your thoughts initially when you heard that information?
I mean, it's obvious that Cam Ward's now going number one. I mean, that's the first thing. And the second thing is, it is the right move. Don't waste people's time. Don't make people jump through hoops that they don't need to jump through. Just do the right thing. Sit down, have that discussion, say we're going in another direction. We think you're a great player and you're going to be a great player for someone else in this league. And this is just the direction we're going in.
I think we've all known that if they stay at one, the pick is going to be Cam Ward, the Miami quarterback, right?
Okay. What are you saying?
For what? No. What I'm saying is this to me signaled, like we knew it was going to be Cam Ward if they stay at one. This to me signaled there probably is not a price to move out of this spot.
That was Todd McShay on his podcast talking about the Titans' decision to cancel Shador Sanders' private workout. Derek, quite animated while listening to that cut.
Aren't those the exact same words that I uttered yesterday?
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, I'm like, because it's like sometimes it's just what you see. That's it. Like, we don't need to make up some, conspiracy theory and try to intertwine all of this and say this has a tentacle over here and look. No, sometimes it's just the simplest thing.
Do you remember those magic eyes? By the way, Willie Donick is now at
Hello,
the desk
guys.
as well.
Yes.
Do you remember those magic eyes where you would have to stare at the page, and if you stared long enough,
It appeared.
an image would pop out?
Yeah.
By the way, I was really bad at those.
I was good at those.
It's like that scene from Mallrats. Have either of you seen Mallrats where the guy is
I
at the
have.
mall staring at the thing?
I'm much more into the original movie, not Mall
Clerks?
Clerks.
Yes.
That is a classic.
It's in
to me.
in the universe.
It's in the same. It's
in the Kevin
producer,
Smith
director. Yeah.
It's in the Kevin Smith universe, but one of the gags in that movie is one of the guys was staring at one of those magic eyes at the mall and he couldn't see it, but all of these other people were coming by and going, "Oh, it's a schooner." And he would get really upset about it because he couldn't see it. So I feel like what your point is, Derek, is we may be staring at something obvious in front of us and trying to think of ways that it's not so obvious. I think Indy Ben on our text line says it well. If Stillman only listened to guys like Hasselbeck and looking at the evidence rather than depending on his theories in hopes that the Titans still may trade down for a haul, which isn't happening, by
If
the
he
way.
would just listen to me, I am telling him, like, sometimes but I think what it is that the Titan fan base, it's like you see it happening, you know more than likely it's going to happen, but you refuse to believe it. You want there to be something else. There has to be another shoe that's dropped. Why? Because you don't trust this organization.
And by the
That's what
way,
it comes
Titans
down
fans
to.
are not the only fans that are like that.
Yeah, it's we're
we-
paying attention because they're
Yes.
here,
yes.
in proximity. So
You are not alone, Titans fans.
every team, y'all all are in the same boat together. We
Yes.
all are in the same boat together.
Mhm.
But it could have just been, I'm going there to make sure the decisions that we've already made is the right decision. Y'all go because we've already planned this. We want to show we want to show respect. We don't want to just cancel everybody and leave. So we want to be respectful to the program, to the players, to the head coach. So y'all go. All right, I'm going to go. Brinker, I'm going to go because I just want to make sure that the way I'm feeling, the way we're feeling is the right way. I'm going to go there and it's going to be solidified. But in the process, I can talk to Shador. I can talk to Travis. I can talk to Coach Prime and let them know respectfully, this is what we're about to do. Because Deanna and them didn't make a fuss about it at all. You didn't hear anything about, because some guys may get a little, sideways because a workout got canceled or something, a disrespect. But you hadn't heard them say anything.
I have not heard a peep.
Exactly.
And they will talk.
Yeah. So,
We know one thing we know about Dion. He will get his opinion out there if he wants it out there.
but if you feel you're doing it respectful, he's going to honor
Then it's-
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
he's going to be like, all right, we just going to go about our business.
So to continue on Albert Breer's story on SI.com, talking about the Titans' decision to cancel the workout with Shedeur Sanders, Breer writes, quote, to be clear, Sanders didn't do anything wrong, nor did Carter or Hunter. I believe, again, all this will show itself to be more about what Ward did right. The more teams I've talked to that have studied Ward, the more I hear they found a guy with a different level of ability from the rest of the quarterbacks in the class. There are questions, of course. One is how a guy who played 4 years at 2 schools before this year could ascend from day 3 pick to number 1 in a single year. But a deeper dive for the teams looking at him has allayed some of that concern. How? It's a question I've asked a lot of folks over the past few weeks. The answer mostly is that the player NFL evaluators were looking at let me rephrase that. I've asked a lot of folks over the past few weeks. The answer mostly is that the player NFL evaluators were looking at as a hurricane in 2024 was actually there previously. It was just in flashes at Washington State in 2022 and 2023. This year, the wild inconsistency started to fade with Ward's own growth and a more talented team around him. Is he what Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, or Drake May were coming out last year? The overwhelming majority would say no. But clearly the Titans are comfortable with where they are. That's Albert Breer at SportsIllustrated.com.
I just looked at our buddy, Jimmy Shapiro, sent another email to me personally, nobody else across the country. Not true. I'm just tongue in cheek. But he has his odds for the first overall pick. Cam Ward going first. It doesn't say going first to the Titans. So this would leave the possibility of them trading out of that spot if somebody blew them away, which looks less and less likely, I guess, by the consensus, which we would say every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still would wait. You have time.
Yeah, I'm not
Things
going to
change.
put 100% on their drafting him, but it looks
Well,
more
before
like
you-
they
but-
are.
Before you answer that, we actually
Okay.
looked up these odds on a different sports book, and
Yeah.
they had Cam Ward as the number 1 overall pick. The odds were at minus 20,000.
That's exactly what Jimmy said. 1 to 200, which equates to the same thing.
Yes.
Minus 2,000.
Minus 20,000
I'm
is
sorry,
what it
sorry.
was on.
Minus 20,000. So that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
That he's the first pick, which I guess surprises me a little bit that it's 20,000. Like 1 to 100
They're
would seem
basically
like
saying
still
it's a
pretty.
lock.
They're saying it's a lock.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're saying.
One texter says, do you guys think it's possible the Titans' plan is to trade back and take Shedeur? All of this just seems like smoke. I'm not buying it. This is what I will say.
He's been listening to Jared's show.
This
Yes.
is what I will say. I don't know Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi. They may be evil geniuses. They may be mad scientists. They may be convincing the entire league of one thing, planning to do another. I'm not buying that. I think this is as cut and dry as it looks. As Jared likes to say, the duck theory. If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, then it's probably a duck. Also, by the way, JC in Goodlettsville says Elaine's boss on Seinfeld also couldn't see the hidden 3D images as well. So I'm not alone in that.
Which boss was that? Was that Mr. Pitt?
Mr. Pitt, is it Mr. Pittman?
Mr.
Peterman? Peterman? Pitt-
Mr. Peterman
Mr.
was
Peterman.
another boss. And
Yes.
there was also Mr. Pitt.
Okay.
Yeah.
The texter says Pittman. Maybe he's combining the two
He
bosses.
could be combining the two bosses.
He's combining the two bosses. But I just have a hard time. I'm not going to completely shut the door on it. I'll leave the door open as little as I humanly can. The teeniest, tiniest crack. But I just, it seems so cut and dry.
You can't have your cake and eat it too, in a sense.
I do like
Jared,
cake, though.
yeah, even though I love cake. Jared, you can't say, or anybody that thinks like, oh, this group is just a bunch of mad geniuses and they're just pulling the wool over everybody's eyes and they're going to trade out of this pick and they're going to draft Shedeur later on. You can't say that and then also say, it's coming out that nobody wants to move up to the number 1 pick. So if nobody wants to move up to the number one pick, how can the Titans be this mad genius type of person and try to conjure up something when there's nothing to conjure up? Nobody wants to move up. So what makes you think you're going to be able to move off that number one pick unless you take pennies on the dollar?
Right.
Which they're not gonna do.
Even if they took the pennies, it still got the guy they wanted.
Uh-huh.
That would be what they would have to consider. Just take whatever. If you
Exactly.
but you may not be able to get what you want that way. One little interesting thing I think is worth pointing out here. Joe on the stream, I'm just looking at the restream. I don't know if you see this one, guys. Cam is jumbo Kyler Murray to me. Well, that is not true because we talked about Cam Ward's running stats.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray is a prolific runner. Kyler Murray can change a game running the football. When he takes off running, you're not catching him.
Yeah.
If you do catch him, you can probably hit him pretty hard. He's a little guy.
Yeah.
But catching him is not easy.
No.
I've seen him extend plays and run for long. Like Cam Ward is not that kind of runner. We need to understand that. We went through Cam Ward's rushing set. He does not run with the ball at all.
He can run, but he's not the runner that you're trying to equate, he and Kyler Murray to being the same.
But I'm
He's
just looking
nowhere
at his
near
college
Kyler Murray.
stats would
Yeah.
not suggest he's going to go out
Exactly.
and be running like Kyler Murray. Nothing like that.
615-737-1025. Speaking of Kyler Murray's name came up in a unscientific exercise I did yesterday. We've been talking about this sort of thing, and I went back and looked at some recent number one overall picks because I wanted to get a sense of whether or not Cam Ward is an outlier. And I will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. This week's Nashville's best deal is from 12 Stones Crossing Golf Club in Goodlettsville. They offer 18 championship holes spanning over 6,800 yards with the meandering Madison Creek at its centerpiece. Get half off a $50 gift card now while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals.
All right, Loan Pronto wants to get the word out on this. The interest rates have plummeted, and we know that inflation, higher costs, all of this uncertainty put a lot of people in a stressful financial situation. But Loan Pronto wants you to know if you own a home, there is a way out. And they can use your home's equity to get you tens of thousands of dollars, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, to use it as you need it. Pay off the credit card bill with the high interest rate. Pay off the car loan rate that might have a huge interest rate. And they can really do this for you. In less than 2 weeks, you'll have that cash and you can address these financial needs. Maybe it's a home improvement project that you're working on right now. Wipe all of those worries out, and you will help even your monthly home budget. Month in and month out, you'll be in a better financial position. So get some money for that home improvement project. It all starts by getting in contact with the experts at Loan Pronto. Just go to loanpronto.com. That's the website. Easy to get on there. Or call right now at 615-499-5780. That's loanpronto.com or 615-499-5780. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781. Subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace Finnegan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you live at Bridgestone Arena. Predators versus Islanders tonight at 7. Pregame at 6 right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie, during the break, you received an update on the Predators bracket challenge. Is that right?
I did. I just was asking around a little bit, and it appears that a guy with some Florida ties made the right choices. Steven Stamkos appears to be the winner.
Congratulations.
They do it
to
every year.
Steven
It's
Stamkos.
fun. It's just like everybody else. We all have our little pools. I finished 6th in mine, if anybody cares. I was not in the Predators one, but I was in quite a big one. There was like 50-something people. If Duke had won,
Mhm.
I would have been in the top 2, maybe won it. I'm not sure. I had a chance to be in a really good spot
Mhm.
had Duke not melted down.
Well,
What?
you missed this before you came up. We started the show by
Petty Dan over here.
yes, explaining how petty of a sports fan I am and how much I enjoyed Houston going through it last night after they did what they did to Duke on Saturday. I was not mad about it.
Yeah, misery loves company.
Exactly.
We call that Schadenfreude, taking pleasure in others' suffering.
Pain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
he's that
always.
guy.
Not always.
but
But
in this
but
case,
there are certain teams that fit that bill, right? That you kind of like when they lose.
I guess I am.
It's
that way
usually
with
the team
Michigan.
that knocks your
Well,
team out. You don't want them to
I
win.
will have
But there
to,
are people that go the other way. They want to say, well, we lost to the eventual champion.
not me.
Nobody beat them.
I explained that.
We didn't beat them, but nobody beat them.
I explained that.
I kind of go into that club
No, I am
sometimes.
not in that club. I am in the complete opposite club. I am in the complete opposite club. But I do want to give a shout out to so on Sunday night, All Elite Wrestling had one of its pay-per-view events, and there was a gentleman sitting in the front row, head to toe in North Carolina garb. He had a North Carolina sweatshirt, a North Carolina hat with the unmistakable baby blue color. And he was right there where the action was because he was on the front row. So when the wrestlers would come out of the ring and fight near where the gentleman was sitting, he just had his phone turned sideways, and it just said Houston 70, Duke 67 on it, and was just holding it up to the national viewing audience. And look, it hurt, but I have to give that guy some props.
Twisted the knife.
I have to give that guy some props. That was very clever.
That is the only situation where I am petty like that. If it's Michigan, yes. But if it's anybody else, I really don't care. But if it's Michigan, if Michigan beats my team or we're out of the tournament before Michigan, I'm hoping Michigan lose. Point blank. I don't care what it is. I hope they lose.
Is
And
there-
I know Vandy do Vandy feel that way about Tennessee?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, see.
I was about to say, does Willie have one of those?
Why
Well-
you say it like that? Like Vandy don't have enough of 'em.
Well, Willie, no, I'm just saying that Willie he's more measured than I am,
Uh-huh.
I think, when it comes to my sports fandom. So I feel like
What,
Willie
you think,
doesn't.
Vanderbilt don't have a rival?
I'm not saying they
A
don't.
rival?
Oh no. I think Vanderbilt. You poll most Vanderbilt fans that
UT?
There's the fan
their second
At-
favorite
Oh,
team is whoever
wow.
Tennessee's playing. I
at
would
the
say.
wrestling event, the Carolina fan, just holding up the phone to the screen. I'll send that to David James so that he can share it with all of you. All right. So one thing that I was curious about, because we talked about this a little bit yesterday, we were talking about the Athletics Consensus NFL Big Board. And on their latest big board, they had Cam Ward at 12, if I recall correctly. And if you look at other big boards, Cam Ward falls into that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range in terms of the overall prospect in the NFL draft. At ESPN takes its top 4 NFL draft analysts, Mel Kiper Jr., Jordan Reed, Matt Miller, and Field Yates, and they have a consensus ranking as well. And Cam Ward, his average is 8.8. So he's 9th on this list. Mel Kiper has him at 6. Reed has him at 9. Miller has him at 14. And Field Yates has him at 6. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to look back at the number 1 overall picks over the past decade. And I wanted to see where those number 1 picks were on the big boards during their draft year, the final edition of the big boards during their draft year. Now, I landed on using Mel Kiper's. It's a subjective list. The reason why I used Mel Kiper was because he's been doing it a long time. It's relatively easy to find old editions of his big boards. Although for some reason, I could not find the 2015 big board. It's been wiped from the internet.
He probably bombed that one.
I'm going to assume that it was Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota. I don't know. Of course, Jameis Winston, the number 1 pick in the 2015 draft. So
And Marcus was 2.
Yes. So Cam Ward is currently number 6 on Mel Kiper's big board. 1 behind Shedeur Sanders, I might add. Mel Kiper likes Shedeur Sanders more than he likes Cam Ward. So the top 6 on Mel Kiper's latest big board: Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, Ashton Genty, Shedeur Sanders, and Cam Ward. So Cam Ward is number 6. And there are going to be more editions of this big board.
So Mel Kiper has Shedeur Sanders at number 5.
He likes Shedeur Sanders more than Cam Ward. He has Shedeur Sanders as his quarterback 1.
I don't know how many others that I have seen that have
I think he believes
Sanders
Shedeur
over Ward.
is a more polished quarterback. You're seeing more of a polished quarterback that can come in and start immediately.
Here's what he wrote about Shedeur Sanders. You won't find a tougher or more resilient quarterback prospect than Sanders, who took 99 sacks over the past 2 seasons, but still put up really strong numbers. I'm always impressed watching him throw on the move, rolling either left or right. He is very accurate in those spots and has the arm to drive the ball. When his mechanics and footwork are sound, he can pick apart a defense. And while he's not necessarily a major rushing threat, he can keep the chains moving with his legs when there is an opening. So that was Mel Kiper on Shedeur Sanders. So I went back and just pulled up the final editions of Mel Kiper's big boards over the past 10 years, minus 2015. And I wanted to see where the number 1 picks in those drafts were on Mel Kiper's final big boards. So last season, for example, Caleb Williams, the number 1 pick in the draft, he was the number 1 player on Mel Kiper's big board, the final edition. Bryce Young in 2023, the number 1 pick in the draft, number 2 on the big board. Jalen Carter was number 1 on his final big board in 2023, but Jalen Carter was a bit of a complicated prospect, right? Was dealing with some off the field issues.
Well, one big one.
Yes.
He was the drag racing. There was a tragic accident. He was right in the middle of it, and that definitely dropped him down.
Yes. So Jalen Carter was number 1 on the big board. Bryce Young was number 2, but Bryce Young went number 1 overall. In 2022, Trayvon Walker was number 9 on Mel Kiper's final big board, despite going number 1 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence in 2021, number 1 pick, number 1 on the big board. Easy peasy. 2020, Joe Burrow, number 2 on the big board, number 1 overall pick. Chase Young was number 1 on the big board, the final edition in 2020. Kyler Murray, you mentioned Kyler Murray, number 1 pick in 2019.
In Nashville, Tennessee.
Number 6 on the final big board by Mel Kiper Jr. By the way, I'm pulling up the players that were ahead of Kyler Murray in 2019. Nick Bosa was number 1. Quinnen Williams, number 2. Devin White, number 3. Josh Allen, the linebacker. Josh Hines Allen now. Number 4. Devin Bush, number 5. Kyler Murray, number 6. So Murray was number 6 on the final big board, number 1 overall pick. 2018, this is what gets interesting. Baker Mayfield, the number 1 pick, number 12 on Mel Kiper's final big board before the 2018 draft. Myles Garrett, number 1 overall pick, number 1 on the big board. Jared Goff, number 1 pick, number 5 on the big board. 2014, Jadeveon Clowney, number 1 pick, number 1 on the big board. So Cam Ward on Mel Kiper's current big board is number 6. But it's something that we've heard from Titans fans a lot, right? That Cam Ward is the 8th best prospect, the 9th best prospect, the 10th best prospect, according to all of the gurus. So how can the Titans feel good about taking the 10th best prospect with the number 1 overall pick? So looking at the past decade, just according to Mel Kiper, it's a subjective list, of course. A lot of them are on par. Caleb Williams was number 1 and number 1. Bryce Young was the number 1 pick. He was number 2 on the big board. Trevor Lawrence, number 1. The 2 that stand out are Kyler Murray was number 6 on the big board in 2019, and Baker Mayfield was number 12 on the big board in 2018.
I think what it is, because I don't know, because there is this sort of quarterback tax where, the quarterback gets elevated, maybe 2-3 spots, outside of what you're thinking. So maybe Mel Kiper did factor that in. Maybe he didn't, because he didn't factor it in with Kyler Murray, nor did he factor it in with Baker Mayfield.
By the way, on that final big board in Baker Mayfield's draft year, he was the 4th quarterback on that big board. Josh Allen was 5, Sam Darnold was 6, Josh Rosen was 10. Not a proud moment for a lot of people when it comes to Josh Rosen.
So, I mean, it's all about preference. Two things are working sort of. It could be working against the Titans, and it could be working for the Titans. One, and the most glaring, is they need a quarterback. That's the most glaring. They need a quarterback. And two, there seems to be, on either side, there seems to be a distinct difference in how many are grading Cam Ward and are grading Shedeur Sanders and or the rest of them behind him.
Right. Like, let me pull back up the consensus big boards from the ESPN draft analyst that I just read. So Mel Kiper has him at 6. Jordan Reed has him at 9. Matt Miller has him at 14. Field Yates has him at 6. So you have 2 people who have him at 6 and 1 who has him at 14. Now, I haven't seen the rest of Miller's list, but again, you look at some of the other prospects. Travis Hunter across the board: 1, 1, 2, 1. Abdul Carter: 2, 2, 1, 2. Mason Graham: 3, 3, 4, 3. Ashton Genty: 4, 4, 3, 4. That's pretty steady.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see the differences of opinion for Cam Ward.
But yet, every odds maker site
Yeah.
knows that Cam Ward will be the first pick.
Right.
So it's not like the Titans are crazy for thinking this way. It's not a perfect world, right? I understand the fans' dilemma. I think we all would wish that if your team is going to pick first, that you have Shaquille O'Neal, that it's 100% he's the first pick. But not every year is like that. It's like, not every year Connor McDavid comes out of the draft.
Right,
Like sometimes you get those guys, and some years it's much more cloudy, and you don't have that clear-cut guy who happens to play the position you need the most.
Right. The Predators fans, we've been talking a lot about this with Titans fans. Predators fans are going to be in this position in a couple of months. The Predators are going to have a top pick in the NHL draft. You all hope it's the number 1 pick in the NHL draft. And you can't pick when you're going to be bad, right? Do Predators fans wish that this was the year that Connor Bedard was coming out, or Macklin Celebrini was coming out, or the next Austin Matthews was coming out? Yes, but same thing that we've talked about with Titans fans. I bet Titans fans really wish that they would have had this season a year ago when they could have picked Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or Drake May. That's just not how it works out sometimes.
Yep. But it's just what to do about it, right? And we've been talking about it for weeks and weeks. We'll talk about it right up to the day. But I know it's not perfect to sit, because I've said it. If he's not clearly worthy of the first pick, is it worth trading out? But it looks less and less. It looks like the consensus is nobody is willing to give up assets to go get Cam Ward. So you're left with the dilemma. And it also has to do with, do you think that Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter are that good? And I don't know if everybody thinks that they're, off the charts, can't miss, future Hall of Famer kind of talents.
Even if you remove Abdul Carter's injury situation, even if he were 100% healthy,
but I don't really feel that.
Yeah.
I think they're both very good prospects for sure. But does it outweigh taking a quarterback that seems to have a high floor? And that is, if that's what you believe of Cam Ward, and I trust Tim Hasselbeck with these kind of things, the ceiling is pretty good, worthy of a first-round pick, not ideal for your first overall pick, but a high floor. then okay. Like, I mean, if that is the best of all your options, then that's what you do.
Listen, neither one of these guys, let's just say the top 3 or 4 guys, neither one of these guys, because people are saying, well, Cam Ward's not worthy of the number 1 pick, so don't draft him. Well, I don't think anybody feels that Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter is worth the number 1 pick, because ain't nobody trying to make a move up past Cleveland or the Giants. I think the Giants had a 3rd pick to try to get up there to potentially take one of those guys in fear that the other guys will take them. So again, what are we trying to get here? Because these 4 guys, you put them in last year's draft, they would not be in the top 4 or 5 when you start ranking players. The person that may get the closest is Travis Hunter, because he does it on both sides of the ball.
We think.
We think. Or the year before that. Why? Because it was a quarterback heavy draft. Okay. So those guys wouldn't have been 1st round picks, and they might have not have been worthy of the 1st pick overall in other drafts. So if you don't believe Cam Ward's worth the number 1 pick, everybody else in the league is telling you they don't believe any one of these guys are worthy of the number 1 pick. Why? Because they're not trying to move up to the Titans. They're not trying to move up to number 1 to try to get them. So you are hell-bent on getting an elite quarterback, or will you say, okay, let me get a franchise quarterback first in hopes that he can turn into or develop into an elite quarterback?
615-737-1025. Again, I just presented Mel Kiper's final big boards over the years. I wanted to see where he had them. He had the number 1 overall picks in each of those years. Again, it's an unscientific exercise. It's a subjective exercise. Mel Kiper's been in the game a long time. It's easy to find his big boards floating around the internet, except for 2015 for some reason. And I really looked. 615-737-1025. How do you feel about the Titans potentially drafting a player who many of these draft analysts believe might be the 8th best, 9th best, 10th best, 11th best, 12th best prospect overall in the draft? 615-737-1025. The Atlanta Braves country road trip is coming to town and teaming up with the Predators and 1025 The Game. Join us at the BetMGM Sports Lounge right here in Bridgestone Arena next Wednesday, April 16th, for a Braves, watch party as they take on the Tampa Bay Rays at noon. There will be free giveaways like hats and t-shirts, plus you could win autographed baseballs and free Braves tickets to a game of your choice. Also, the first 15 people in the door will win a pair of Preds tickets to that night's game, which is the season finale. So, as I pulled away from that page, for more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events.
Terrific Tuesday to everyone. Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time now. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting some type of goal to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some solutions, because my good friends over at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team, understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. If you want an opportunity to win tickets to see Jason Aldean at Bridgestone Arena, I'll give you how exactly you can do that at the end of this segment. But I wanted to get people's reaction to the discrepancy between where the Titans are planning to take Cam Ward and his overall ranking among draft analysts. Again, you read any sort of list, The Athletic, ESPN, there are others. Just rankings of the prospects. And Cam Ward is somewhere in the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range. Mel Kiper has him at 6. Matt Miller of ESPN has him at 14. It ranges widely. Chad on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, I feel like the Cam Ward discourse locally is much colder than what other fan bases view it as. It feels like our fan base still needs to be talked into it, while others look at it from the outside as the obvious / only choice. Really strange. Now, I imagine part of that, to Chad's point, is Titans fans, they listen to our station, they follow the team more closely than what people outside of Nashville do. So Titans fans have a skepticism, and understandably so, about the front office and ownership, the people making decisions. So I do think that plays into it as well, that perhaps the Titans fan base still needs to be talked into it just because of how poorly things have gone around here in recent years.
Well, they don't trust the franchise. That's basically what it boils down to. Because if you had any trust and belief in the franchise, then you wouldn't be questioning whether they're going to make the right decision or not. Because if you had trust in this franchise, you wouldn't question if they were going to draft Cam Ward at number 1. You just didn't question that. But because just like I don't think, many question, the franchise when they drafted Marcus Mariota 2 overall. They felt they had trust in the franchise. I believe they did. So no one questioned that. But then that made up the evaluation was a little bit different then. If you trust your franchise, then you trust that they're going to do, or they're going to evaluate the proper way, and they're going to draft the best guy. If it's Cam Ward, then it's Cam Ward. This is not about Cam Ward. This is about the organization. Because if you are Kansas City, and say if Kansas City wanted to draft Cam Ward, let's just say Cam Ward, that fan base trusts that organization.
Yes.
Why? Because they've seen the fruits of their past drafts and moves in free agency.
I do think it's interesting, and you mentioned this earlier, Derek, this idea that there are a lot of Titans fans who distrust this front office. But then again, I'm sure if you did one of those Venn diagrams, right, with the 2 circles converging, there might be a group of Titans fans that say, I distrust this organization, but I'm not sure I really believe they're actually going to take the number 1 pick. And Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker are just fooling everybody. I feel like it can't be both.
I think because and this is no diss to Titans fans that sit there and they watch the Titans each and every week and they cheer for their team and they're passionate about their team. But I'm going to put myself in this boat with y'all. 99% of us don't have the experience to really look at Cam Ward and say he's not worthy of the number 1 pick. And I'm throwing Jared in that boat with us too.
That's an interesting boat.
We don't have the experience to know whether he is the number 1, like by his play. Because if I'm just looking at his play, look at the number, he's worthy of the number 1 pick. But obviously it's deeper than that, So when we get our calls or when, he's not worthy of the number 1 pick. No, just say you don't trust the franchise. Say that, and I'm with you with that in regards to trusting the franchise. Why? Because the franchise in recent years haven't given the fan base anything to trust on. Now, this regime may be different. So I'm going to let it all play out. But I think a lot of fans, and rightfully so, they are stuck on what has this organization done to really change what's going on. Nothing.
What
We
kind
can't trust you.
What kind of boat are we talking about here? You're
It's,
into
it's a
boats.
nice boat. It's a nice boat.
Is it a yacht, a super yacht?
It's just a big yacht.
A
you know,
catamaran?
because I don't want anybody to, die or anything, man. So it's a nice boat that's gonna carry us all.
Okay.
But we're all in it
Like
together.
the White Lotus, they took the boat over to the island.
Yes,
Yes.
one of those
That was a
boats.
nice boat.
That is
Yeah.
a
Pretty nice boat.
Exactly. So
Some
one of
weird
those
stuff
boats.
happened on that
Some
boat.
No,
weird
mine
stuff
is-
happened on that boat.
Mine is the weird stuff. Yeah. Mine is the weird stuff.
Some
but-
very strange
strange
stuff
things.
happened on that boat. One texter says the organization is not straightforward about anything. If they are putting on a show, it's one thing, but to call Cam Ward a franchise quarterback but not listen to trade offers does not make any logical
But they are
sense.
listening to trade offers. They've been listening to trade offers for weeks, for months.
No,
I'm
they
sure.
are. I'm sorry. I said but to listen, not to listen.
Okay, this is what I want.
I think what the texter's point is sorry, Derek. I
Uh-huh.
think the texter's point is, if they really believe that Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback, why are they listening to trade offers? It should be
Okay.
it should be that simple. They should not. They should.
But what would you have them do? That's my
Exactly.
question back to them. Like this is a dilemma that is out of their control.
I think Jared has brought up the example of Joe Burrow's draft year. The Dolphins were reportedly hot and heavy on Joe Burrow and were trying to make a trade, and the Bengals were like, nah, we're not doing it.
Okay, were they
Basically,
gonna-
it's like if Cam Ward were on that level to the
Right.
Titans, why would they?
Because he's not on that level.
but how many quarterbacks have been on that level? Even
That's
even
right.
if even
Very
if they were
few.
drafted
Very few.
number one overall.
Very few.
Listen, I think
I go to the 1985 lottery in the NBA draft. The Knicks already had Patrick Ewing's jersey, and I'm sure all the teams in that lottery
Yeah.
was the first time they had the lottery. They all had a Ewing jersey. There was
Everybody-
not
yeah.
even any discussion who the first pick was going to
so.
be. This is not one of those
No,
times.
this is not one of those times.
And that's
we
not the
haven't-
Titans' fault.
And we haven't had a draft like we don't have many drafts like that where it's just when it comes to a quarterback, it's just a consensus. My thing is this: to me, it's pointing toward them drafting Cam Ward. But even if I know I'm going to draft Cam Ward, if somebody comes to me with a deal that I have never I don't think nobody's stupid enough to come to me with a deal like that. But they come to you with a deal like that.
Right.
Are you not then supposed to say, whoa,
no,
whoa,
I want
whoa,
to show
whoa.
conviction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are you not supposed to say, whoa?
That word is banned, by
Let
the
me-
way.
Yeah. Let me bag this up for a minute. So you're willing to give me this, and that for my number one pick? Okay, maybe we need to talk about some things. But anything short of that, no, this is my guy. I'm going to draft him.
Michael is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Michael, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Okay, I want to speak for everyone who y'all are saying things like there's some maniacal genius. They're not. It's just business. You hype it up, and then you unload it. So when I sell something, I'll put it on Marketplace. I'll wait 3 days, and then I post it sold. Then I bring it back 2 weeks later. You see what I'm saying? So it's just a marketing scheme. They're not geniuses, obviously, because they would have got it right 10 years ago. Also, the trade we're looking to make is trade to third for the Giants' second and third round pick this year. That's it. Just trade the two first round picks, swap them, get a second and a third this year. We take Jackson Dart. We got 2 second round picks and a third round pick. And I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you for the call. And it you know what? It's funny to me, and this is not picking on Michael. Thank you for the call, Michael. It's always interesting, and this happens in all leagues, right? People become, for lack of a better word, obsessed with certain prospects. Oh, Jackson Dart. Oh, Tyler Shuck. Oh, we should have him as our quarterback. It's like, if you have questions about Cam Ward, aren't there more questions about
Exactly.
Jackson Dart? If you're
Even
not
if you-
convinced that Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback, what makes Jackson Dart a franchise quarterback?
So, and that leads me to what do you want here? Do you want an elite quarterback, or do you want a franchise quarterback that could potentially be an elite quarterback? Because there's not many guys that come out and become like they were labeled as elite and they became elite. There's not many guys that come out, but there are more guys that come out that teams believe they are franchise quarterbacks and they end up turning into elite quarterbacks.
Right. Like I saw a report the other day. I can't remember where, so I apologize. It was about Jalen Milroe. And I think it was about Jalen Milroe getting an invitation to the green room at the NFL draft, where they put where they put the prospects they know are going to get drafted. And I remember one of the people saying they don't want a Will Levis situation, right? They don't want someone sitting there waiting for their name to be called and it doesn't get called and it's hella awkward. But you will hear people say, "Oh, Jalen Milroe. Oh, Quinn Ewers. Oh, Jackson Dart. We should trade down and get Jackson Dart." That doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't solve the issue at quarterback. Cam Ward is, despite his faults, he is a better quarterback prospect than all of those players. And I know that it's different when you use a third-round pick on the quarterback versus when you use the first overall pick on the quarterback. But I still have more faith in Cam Ward. If I'm just looking at the prospects in this draft, I have more faith in Cam Ward to be able to do it than Jackson Dart.
But I guess what the caller was throwing out there is if you could drop to 3 and you still get, in theory, the second best quarterback prospect, whoever you think that is, and you get a couple extra picks, what's the difference? What's the difference in prospect level in their own evaluation of the quarterback they select and Cam Ward? Because the extra picks are important. They have made, and this has been Jared's thing that he's been pounding home every day, and I tend to agree with him philosophically that they have said, we want more picks. This is the way we have to build our roster back. That's the only way they're going to become a contender is to draft well every year. And right now, they do not have enough picks to do that. So they're looking for ways to do it. It just may not work out real well. But if Cam Ward is better than the value of just an extra second and an extra third, or whatever that price would be to move down 2 slots, then that's what they have to weigh. How much more do they like Ward than the second best quarterback prospect, if that's what they want?
By the way, on Mel Kiper's latest mock draft, he has Shedeur Sanders at 9 to New Orleans, Jackson Dart at 26 to the Los Angeles Rams, Tyler Shuck at the top of the second round to Cleveland, and Jalen Milroe at 34 to the Giants.
You wouldn't pick those guys in the first round.
No.
You would. I think you would be passing on the quarterback position for a year if you wanted to move down to 3, and then you take Carter or Hunter in theory. That would be my thought, and just say we're going to table the quarterback thing for a year.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on this. I also want to address something about Cam Ward. There is a comparison for Cam Ward that I've heard a lot. And I want to ask if we should be careful making this comparison. And we'll do that next. 615-737-1025. I told you about Jason Aldean. Let me tell you how to win tickets to see Jason Aldean. Text in the keyword Jason, Jason. Make sure I can spell it right. Jason to 615-737-1025. And you will receive a link to sign up for a chance to win all-inclusive tickets to the Eurostone Club at Bridgestone Arena to see Jason Aldean, plus a chance to win $1,000 cash.
Lee Company. Let's talk about Lee Company. Proud sponsor, Nashville Predators. Our coverage continues tonight at 6 o'clock. The Predators have just 3 home games left. And so Max Hurst will be working the controls at 6 o'clock, bringing you the pregame coverage brought to you by Lee Company. Meanwhile, Lee Company continues to work our listening area as they have since 1944, making sure all of your systems are working properly at home. And I mean the air conditioning system, which is probably at the center of your thought right now, as the weather will start to turn warm very soon, and your heating unit, the plumbing, the electrical systems. They have a plan for all of you year round that addresses all of those things, and it takes your mind off of it. It's called the home maintenance plan. You pay a small monthly fee. You get discounts on repairs with those annual checkups that you'll get as a result. So they'll find the little problems. This is called preventive maintenance. You find the problems before they become crises in the middle of the hot summer, for example. Check in on the home maintenance plan. We use it in our house. We have for a long, long time. It's worked really well for us. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. Those are the contact digits. 615-567-1000 or on the net at leecompany.com. Lee Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D. Mace Vingan and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you at Bridgestone Arena. Predators and Islanders tonight at 7 o'clock. Willie, Andrew Burnett still out?
Yes. Todd Richards will be the acting head coach for a second straight game as Andrew Burnett continues to deal with a family matter.
Okay, so Todd Richards will be behind the bench for the Predators tonight against the Islanders. Pre-game at 6. Barry Trotz joining Jared Stillman at 5 o'clock. As usual, right here at this desk, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, Jared will certainly text me. So I've been reading a lot of these comparisons lately. Jared actually talked about it on his show yesterday. And I'm wondering if we need to be careful when we compare Cam Ward to Steve McNair. And I'm not picking on Nick Suss of the Tennessean here. He wrote a really good story with the headline, Air McNair, H-E-I-R, Air McNair. Experts offer comparisons of Cam Ward, Tennessee Titans legend Steve McNair. Nick Suss writes in part, quote, all indications point toward Miami quarterback Cam Ward being the Tennessee Titans' primary target with the number 1 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, which begins on April 24th. Side note, mercifully, a confident, prolific, big-armed passer who started his 5-year college career as a 0-star recruit in the FCS, Ward's profile doesn't match those of recent number 1 picks like Caleb Williams or Bryce Young, but in some ways it does resemble that of another early Titans draft pick. And a quote from Phil Simms, I think when I saw him, I've got to admit, body was the first thing. I go, God, he looks like Steve McNair. Emery Hunt, analyst and writer at CBS Sports and Football Game Plan, quote, when Cam took the field at Incarnate Word, I was like, wow, he looks a lot like Steve McNair because of the different arm angles, the calmness but arrogance within the pocket. Like, man, I could stay here all day. Somebody's going to break open and I can get them the football. I remember, Derek, we talked about this a few weeks ago. I don't think you were on the show that day, Willie, but I was reading an analysis of Cam Ward from Nate Tice at Yahoo Sports, who refer to Cam Ward as a Diet Coke version of Steve McNair. And I think it might be a little too easy considering where we are to make that comparison. I'm just wondering, Derek, considering how revered Steve McNair is here and how important he was to the Titans franchise, if we need to be careful comparing Cam Ward to Steve McNair.
Yeah, I mean, let's just go by the numbers in college. And I know that they were not playing in the same sort of class or division. I get it. But what are you comparing? Because Steve McNair was more of a dual threat quarterback than anything. Hell of an arm. His ability to escape out of the pocket, his ability to run when he needed to. He was a horse of a guy to bring down.
Yes.
Nobody says that about Cam Ward. Nobody talks about him being a prolific runner, not only just a passer, but a runner as well. Nobody's talking about Cam Ward in that way. They have talked about other quarterbacks, Jackson and the likes, of being in sort of that mode, and they didn't compare them to Steve McNair, or maybe they did. So because Cam Ward doesn't possess those traits, can he become Steve McNair? Yes, there's a possibility he can become Steve McNair. But don't you want him to be greater than that? In a sense, you not only want him to sort of be that, you want him to be even more, especially in today's landscape of quarterbacks that's within your, the AFC. What are you measuring outside of the obvious? What are you measuring to say, though, that's Steve McNair? The obvious, yeah, he's built. He may be built like Steve McNair, but outside of that, I don't think his play resembles Steve McNair, not one bit.
Let me read a little bit more of this article from Nick Suss. These comparisons, quote, these comparisons usually come with some caveats. First, people say Ward isn't the kind of runner McNair was when he was an MVP and Super Bowl starter for the Titans. Then they make some forensic distinctions. McNair was thicker, his hands were bigger, he played a more physical brand. But the comparison has some grounding, and it's not just because the Titans are in position to pick him. Hunt says the idea popped in his head as early as 2021, when Ward was a freshman at the University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio, putting up unfathomable stats in a COVID-truncated spring season. Hunt made the comparison publicly in August 2022 before Ward had taken an FBS snap. Ward's combination of confidence navigating a pocket, arm talent that translates to being able to make throws all across the field, and a knack for cranking into high gear late in games are the bedrock of the McNair comparison. The fact that he began at a college most NFL fans haven't heard of, like McNair at Alcorn State, only aids the discussion.
But again, I could say that about 3 or 4 other quarterbacks. I can say that about 3 or 4 other quarterbacks out there.
Shedeur Sanders started at Jackson State.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you? He's more so of if you want to sort of put that in a mold, he and Cam are more so the same quarterback than Cam and Steve McNair again, because neither one of those guys are the dual threat that Steve McNair was, and it didn't just start with that Super Bowl year and that MVP year. That was him in college. They wanted to get him out of it in the NFL, because they didn't want him to take the pounding and the beating that he ultimately took. So again, when you look at Steve McNair coming out and Cam Ward coming out, there's no comparison other than the obvious, because I think their game is different. Now, again, can he morph into Steve? Yeah, there's a possibility he can. But right now, I just don't think I guess you can try to, bring it all together and tie it all together however you want.
I think
I get it.
It seems like a stretch.
Yeah,
to me.
and that's what I'm trying to really say.
I just haven't had that thought. I guess I need to read the article a little bit closer. I think I need to maybe watch Cam Ward play more. Maybe I'll feel different when I watch, like if they draft.
But now
him,
it's in your head now, so you're sort of distorted now anyway.
Well, we had a texter earlier in the show
now anyway.
Caught my attention by saying Cam Ward reminds him of Kyler Murray, and that's way different. Kyler Murray and Steve McNair are really unique quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. In very different ways, right? Kyler Murray is just a little water bug that is an incredible thrower, incredible athlete, and can run. We pointed out many times, Cam Ward has not been a prolific runner of the ball. Kyler Murray and Steve McNair were outstanding, and in the case of Murray, continues to be an effective runner with the ball. I haven't seen that from Ward. His stats certainly wouldn't show you that at any of his stops, and there are 3 of them in the college ranks. The other thing about McNair, what made Steve McNair great? I mean, he was a great athlete, but his competitiveness, his edge, his intangibles off the charts. That is why I would have to be very, very careful. And look, maybe Cam Ward's got that. I hope he does. That would be great. I don't know if you can predict that until you see it, because Steve McNair was kind of in a category of his own with that area, that toughness, that competitiveness, that will. I'm going to get us down the field. I don't know how I'm going to do it. If I have to run it, I'll do it. If I have to wrestle myself out of a tackle, if I have to take a hit, like those are things that you cannot. It's hard to project, and so when you start making that comparison, you got to be careful. Because it's not fair to Cam Ward, really.
615-737-1025. Should we be careful comparing Cam Ward to Steve McNair? Do you see elements of Steve McNair in Cam Ward? 615-737-1025. It's time for the 4th annual 615 Charity Open. Yes, the 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament, I should say. Cromwell Media, along with partners Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor, are proud to announce we will be back at Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us and a few guest media members, athletes, and musicians as we raise money for Folds of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com.
Okay, let's talk F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. It sounds like a simple slogan, and it is, and with good reason. Don't you want your financial game to be a simple game, to something you don't stress about on an everyday level? People that you know are just a phone call away or an email away, and they are ready to help you. That's what F&M Bank strives to do. That's why their slogan is banking made easy on purpose. They've got tools for you. A little change can go a long way. They've got the Smart Swipe debit card. It's a roundup feature. Rounds up everything to the nearest dollar. So every time you use it, you're saving money. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but over time, you're going to be saving money. Very simple. Take your mind out of it, you're saving money. And they've got other tools for you. If you're a business owner, if you're a little older, a little younger, they'll tailor it towards you. Your business means more to them. They've got 20 locations in our listening area. There's one of them near you. And tell them that I sent you. And go to their website, myfmbank.com. That's myfmbank.com. Find that nearest location and learn more about how to make banking easier on purpose. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here at Bridgestone Arena. Predators and Islanders tonight at 7 o'clock. Pre-game at 6, right here on 1025, 1063 The Game. Also confirmed, Barry Trotz will indeed join Jared Stillman at this very desk at 5 o'clock for their weekly conversation. Just 3 home games left for the Nashville Predators this regular season: tonight, next Monday, next Wednesday. So if you want to get out to a game, time is running out. Come join us at Bridgestone Arena. But the question I was asking, gentlemen, in the previous segment, and I want your opinions on it as well at 615-737-1025. Should we be careful comparing Cam Ward to Steve McNair? It's been made in many different places. Again, my favorite of these comparisons was Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports calling Cam Ward, quote unquote, a Diet Coke version of Steve McNair.
I'm not seeing it.
No,
So
I don't.
So I want your thoughts on it as well at 615-737-1025. Let's go to Kevin on our text line. He says Cam does not have the same running ability as McNair, but he is very similar in the pocket and can run when he needs to. I just want a guy I can get behind and pull for, win, lose, or draw, just like Knack 9. He's not the same, but he does have similarities. He says, check the text scroll. I said last season he is strong in the pocket. He shrugs guys off one after another. He's not McNair, but for me, that's the most similar guy I've seen to McNair.
I could say that about a lot of quarterbacks that have come out of college. Josh Allen was the same way, can shrug guys because of them being massive individuals. I could have said that about Ben Roethlisberger many years ago because of their stature. Again, listen, if you believe he reminds you of Steve McNair, and if that's going to help you sort of come to grips with the Titans, possibly more than likely drafting Ward, then have at it. If that's going to move you over to believing in your franchise and this franchise, then have at it. If he turns out to be Steve McNair, God bless him. That means this franchise will be in a good place, a very good place. But I'm with you, Adam. Like, you got to be careful with, if the Titans do indeed, draft him, tagging him the next. He's Steve McNair.
And to be clear, the Titans aren't doing this.
Exactly.
To
The
my
Titans aren't
knowledge,
doing- yeah.
the Titans are not doing this.
Exactly. So just be careful because, for those of y'all that was around here, and true Titans fan when Steve was in his prime, he was a hell of a player, and not just players, a hell of a leader on the field. And you just don't get that. So if he does become that, then great. I hope he does, because the Titans don't have to worry about that position for a good while. But let the young man morph into that. He has skill. He has a skill set. He has a high ceiling. And if the Titans feel that he's worthy of that number 1 pick, then to me, they're saying he's a franchise quarterback that they hope develops into more than just a franchise quarterback. When you win a Super Bowl, you become elite. So that's what they want.
Willie, my part of my point is, I feel like if these comparisons start to become more prevalent and the Titans draft Cam Ward, you might be setting him up to fail in the eyes of many Titans fans because of the reverence that Titans fans hold Steve McNair in. So
I would agree with that.
So that's something that I'm also wondering from Cam Ward's point of view. Like, if Cam Ward comes in and Titans fans think, oh, he's going to be the next Steve McNair, that might be a losing battle, and that certainly won't help Cam Ward.
And like I said, I just haven't had that thought. I haven't watched Cam Ward play that much, but when I have, I certainly haven't had the thought of, man, that's a lot like Steve McNair. Like,
Exactly.
he's got the same height and weight, but that doesn't mean style-wise he reminds me of him. And I will go back into Titans history. Vince Young had a connection with Steve McNair, and I'm trying to remember the specifics of it, but I think Steve McNair had known Vince Young since he was a
He was
kid.
at one of his camps.
One of his camps when he was younger.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Vince Young, mobile quarterback, he could run. We know Vince Young could run. And Steve McNair was gone before Vince Young came in, so there wasn't that mentor thing, which a lot of people thought, well, maybe they'll bring Vince Young in and they'll have Steve McNair to mentor him. That never happened because of Steve McNair's contract situation. That was a whole mess.
Mhm.
But he ended up moving on to the Ravens. But that having been said, I think there was some hope because Vince Young was a high first-round pick that he could be, in his own way, the next Steve McNair. He wasn't the same style, but maybe the thought was he's a guy that can really run. His prolific college player, had all of those accolades, and he'll get better as a passer like Steve McNair did. But what you found out was Vince Young was a mental midget compared to Steve McNair.
Yeah.
There was no comparison in leadership qualities, in attitude, in competitiveness, toughness. He just didn't have that. And so, again, I don't think it's a good thing to especially in the same town, to make that kind of comparison. It's not fair to him.
So another point that Jared made yesterday when talking about this, and I always, every time he says this, I'm like, Jared, just be careful with what you're saying. He'll say, you people out there. And I'm like, what do you mean, you people? But he'll say, you people, about the Cam Ward, Steve McNair comparison. And he points out that Steve McNair did not start right away. It was Chris Chandler, correct? His first 2 seasons, McNair's first 2 seasons with the then Houston Oilers.
Yeah.
It wasn't until his 3rd season in the NFL that he became an everyday starter.
Mhm.
That
He
doesn't
started
happen.
6 games in 2 years.
That doesn't happen anymore. It rarely happens.
Yeah.
You know, the Packers do it. They did it with Aaron Rodgers. They did it with Jordan Love. But how often does that happen anymore? We played the clip last week, Derek, from Brian Callahan, you know, about quarterbacks having to play right away. Patrick Mahomes, another example of someone who didn't play right away and benefited probably from not playing right away. But that doesn't happen anymore. If Cam Ward comes here, he's playing. He's not sitting behind Will Levis or Brandon Allen.
Well,
No,
I mean,
it's-
you could
it's-
for a couple weeks if you thought it was the right thing, but every week people would say, well, when are you going to put the kid in? When are you putting him in there?
If the only way you can do what y'all are suggesting is you tell everybody right now. As soon as you draft him, you tell everybody right then and there, this young man, we are going to develop him to be our potential starter. But this year, it will not happen unless he just blows everybody away. That's the only way that you get away with Cam Ward, not starting as a rookie. When you talk about the Titans are, I think you can see teams doing that. But like Tim said, and Willie, you weren't on yet with us. You were still doing your prayer duties. When you pick guys like a Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers, in a sense, those are luxury picks. Typically, they come later in the round, so you can do that. Or you could say that that was a luxury pick for Kansas City because they had Alex Smith and they were winning ball games, and they felt that we can pick him now because we don't need him to be a starter right now. Well, the Titans are in that position. They're not. The guy that they draft number 1 at any position, he needs to be a day 1 starter. If they choose to go get Travis Hunter number 1, he needs to be a day 1 starter. If they go get Abdul Carter, if they decide they want to get Genty, he needs to be a day 1 starter, period. So they're operating from that standpoint. They can't afford to draft Cam Ward and then end up him not starting unless you draft him at that podium. You tell everybody he's not playing his first year. And then fan base is still going to be upset with you, but that's the only way you can get around that.
Nick Suss, in this article at the Tennessean, writes, Ward naturally isn't the first quarterback prospect who has been compared to McNair in the 30 years since the Oilers drafted him. Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott received the comparison quite a bit. So did former San Francisco first-round pick Trey Lance. even former Titans like Malik Willis and Deshaun Kaiser. Remember when Deshaun Kaiser played for the
I don't
Titans?
remember this. I honestly do not think this is a storyline that I can, in my mind. Dak Prescott, I never heard him compared to Steve McNair. He's nothing like Steve
My
McNair.
point is that I've heard and read multiple places now people making the comparison between Cam Ward and Steve McNair. I'm not. I promise you, I'm not pulling this out of thin air.
No, I'm not saying.
I
no.
know you're not. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you and our audience as well. I am not pulling this out of thin air. I've seen enough of these comparisons to make me wonder: should we steer clear of making this comparison? Not just because of the player, not just because of Cam Ward's attributes versus Steve McNair's attributes. It's the place that Steve McNair holds in this city.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. And trying to look out for Cam Ward.
Yes,
I think it would be the best thing for Cam Ward to never utter that.
right. Cam Ward's not saying it. The Titans aren't saying it. But I just think that if there are enough people out there who think that Cam Ward could be Steve McNair and the Titans draft Cam Ward, that's, as I said, that's a losing battle for Cam Ward.
Yeah, I don't think you are expecting or should expect, him to come in and be Steve McNair. Like that's the expectation. You hope that with them drafting him, that they think that he can become their franchise quarterback, and maybe that looks like what Steve McNair did here. But don't you want that extra mile, because you want, as much as Steve tried to will us into winning that game, you want somebody that ultimately wins that game. And I'm not saying that like Steve did. Steve did everything he possibly, if you watch that game, you know that he did everything he possibly could to will us to win that game. But you want somebody that actually wins that game. But then you want a guy, because of Steve McNair's brand of football, he was susceptible to a bunch of injuries. I don't want that as my quarterback. I don't. And today's football doesn't, put a quarterback in a position to be, beat up like that. The last guy that happened to was Cam Ward, and it ended his career very prematurely, I believe.
Cam Newton, you mean?
Cam Newton,
Yes.
not Cam Ward. Cam Newton. And it ended his career prematurely.
I feel like I
believe.
haven't seen a lot of those comparisons.
I think again, it goes back to the only reason you're comparing him to Steve McNair because of the body type.
Right.
Because Cam Newton was more Steve McNair than Cam Ward.
That I could
But
see
because
that
of
a
the
little bit
body
more.
type, you don't
Yeah.
compare the two.
Right.
You know?
Cam Newton in his prime would run through your face.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know if Cam Ward can do that yet.
Yeah. So it a lot of it does, I think.
Cam
is-
Ward,
is based on body type.
Cam Newton, I'd have to look back at the number of attempts, but I feel like one of the issues with Cam Newton was he was so effective as a runner that
he
they
didn't protect
abused it a little
yeah,
bit.
he didn't protect himself. Yeah, that's the only reason why. And that's why I said because of that, it cut his career short prematurely.
His
I believe.
prime, I think, was
Yeah.
not as long.
Exactly
as it
should
could have been.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're looking at these were Cam Newton's rushing attempts in the NFL from the beginning of his career per season. 126, 127, 111, 103, 132.
That's
Yeah.
quite a few.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And Steve McNair ran a lot, but I think
But I don't think he got to those
not
numbers.
not as many
Yeah.
design runs.
Exactly.
I think maybe his first year as a starter, he got around 100. I
I
want
don't
to
even
pull
think
it up
he got
here.
around 100.
He averaged in his 17 game average in his career was 128
Oh,
rushing
so
attempts.
there you go.
That was Cam. That was Cam Newton.
Newton.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Steve McNair is a lot lower than that, I believe.
It has
As we
to
look.
be what 30s maybe, 40s.
Steve McNair's
40s?
17 game. Well, he never played 17 games.
Yeah.
But his 17 game average would have been 71.
Huh,
Right.
yeah.
So he only ran the ball 101 times his first year as a starter. And that was when he was still
Get
learning the
developed.
passing game.
Exactly.
And his rushing attempts decreased pretty much every year. Not every year, but it went down to that 70 to 80 range.
Mhm.
And then the year he won the MVP, the co-MVP with Peyton Manning, 2003, he only ran the ball 38 times that year, only for 138 yards. So it showed his evolution. He was
Exactly.
the MVP of the league. He could still run if he had to, but he was much more getting it done as a passer by that portion of his career.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on the comparisons that seem to be percolating, comparing Cam Ward and Steve McNair. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, an interesting question from Paul Kaharski. Paul Kaharski filled in for Joe Rexroad today on Robbie and Rexroad. I want to ask this question to all of you, as well as to Willie and Derek. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D. Mace Vingen and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen. Let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and bring in Matt. Matt, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. Just want to say, I'm not a scout, not a coach, but I've watched every snap of Cam Ward on YouTube. There's about a 2.5 hour long video of every snap of his Miami career. Watched about half his games at Washington State the year before, and I feel like I have the perfect comp for Cam Ward. And I don't think I've heard his name mentioned. It's definitely not Steve, definitely not Cam Newton. Cam Ward is a little bit taller Russell Wilson in his prime. He can extend the play just like Russ. He feels the pressure just like Russ. Great arm. Does his best work outside the pocket. I feel like that's the closest comp that I've seen to Cam. And again, not an expert, not a scout by any stretch, but that's the closest comp that I've seen for Cam, and would love to hear you guys' thoughts on it.
Thank you for the call, Matt. First of all, I would like to, I was going to say congratulate. I would like to, good on you for watching a 2.5 hour YouTube video.
Well, yeah,
every
at least
snap
put in
that
the
Cam
time.
Ward.
Yeah.
Yes, I appreciate you doing the homework. That's important. I have not heard that comparison. A comparison, we'll talk about the Russell Wilson one. A comparison that I've seen a little bit is Jordan Love. I believe I heard Matt Miller on ESPN mention Cam Ward's comp being Jordan Love. The Ringers NFL Draft Guide has Cam Ward's comp as Jordan Love. So let's start with Matt and his Russell Wilson comp, and then we can throw Jordan Love in there as well.
Well, if you're just talking about style of play, because again, you look at the body type, I think Russell Wilson was a little bit thicker, and I think Cam is a little bit more leaner. He's still probably a big guy, but his frame is a little different from Russell Wilson. But I will say this: if you're just talking about how they played the game in college, there is sort of like you can't compare it, because Russell, whereas he could run, he wasn't a big runner. They didn't design runs for him, but his runs more than likely. And I watched Russell Wilson when he was at Wisconsin, when he transferred over. It wasn't until he got to Wisconsin, I believe, that he, the last year with North Carolina State and then Wisconsin, they used him just a tad bit more in the actual run scheme, but not to a point where, especially in Wisconsin, because they are a running team.
By the way, during his Seahawks career, Russell Wilson averaged 91 rushing attempts per 17 games.
Yeah, so
and ran the ball really well.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at them as far as college players. Now, I can see the style of play. The body composition is a little bit off, is a little bit different, but the way they played the game, I think, are similar. They had the ability to run, but it wasn't, half of their game. They were more so buy time, run if I have to, but I'm looking to throw the ball down the field. The offenses were different because Wisconsin has always been a run-based offense, and they were that way when Russell Wilson was there. This year, I think with Cam Ward, it was more so of a pass. We can run, but we're going to pass too. Had a good running back. So when you talk about the stats, the numbers, and how they played, I could see a comparison of Russell Wilson coming out, comparing him more so to Cam Ward, or Cam Ward coming out comparing him more so to Russell Wilson than I think Steve McNair.
What about Jordan Love? Because that's another comparison.
I didn't watch. I maybe saw a game of Jordan Love in college.
Well, what about him at the NFL level?
See, it's hard to project it, because it's hard to project, what type of quarterback Cam Ward is going to be. Now, you look at Love, Love is a guy. I'd say Love is more so a Justin Herbert. Like he can't run, but I don't want him running. I want him to do everything he needs to do within the pocket, by time, slip some blockers, some tacklers, will be tacklers, and get the ball down the field. That's more so of Justin Herbert-ish or a Patrick Mahomes-ish sort of buying time. And now even Jackson is starting to figure that out. Like, I can run, but I'm going to try to buy as much time as I can to get the ball down the field. So when I look at, if I look at Jordan Love being more so those guys. So maybe a comparison to Jordan Love in the sense of his NFL career. But again, I didn't watch Jordan Love coming out of college.
So Paul Kaharski, who filled in admirably for Joe Rexrode this morning on Robbie and Rexrode as Rexrode returns from the Final Four, tweeted this at 7:30 this morning, a poll question at Paul Kaharski NFL. If the Titans draft Cam Ward and his best statistical season is 4,500 passing yards, a 71.4% completion percentage, 41 touchdowns, and 16 picks, is that a success? That's all of the information you're given. It was a yes or no question. 3,855 people have voted so far. 91.1% say yes, that would be considered a success. There's no other context, like how many wins did he get in that season? Just that, those are his numbers. 4,500 passing yards, a 71.4% completion percentage.
You know who that is? It's Joe Burrow.
You know who it actually is?
Who?
Do you care to take a guess? Because I did look this up this morning.
I think it's Joe Burrow, but Lamar Jackson.
Willie, any want to venture any guesses? Because this was
Can you give it to me one more time?
No. Okay, not Lamar Jackson, because they consider
4,500 passing yards. 4,500 passing yards, a 71.4% completion percentage, 41 touchdowns, and 16 picks. This was an actual quarterback stat line from last season.
It's either Justin Herbert. It's not Baker.
An NFL quarterback?
It was
Sam Darnold.
This was an NFL quarterback.
41 touchdowns and 16 interceptions?
Yes.
Sam Darnold. Or did Sam have less than that? No, Jared Goff. Jared Goff. I'm going with Jared Goff. That's my last answer.
I think the 16 interceptions would be Sam Darnold.
The answer is Baker Mayfield.
Huh.
That was Baker.
Ah.
That was Baker
16
Mayfield.
yeah.
That was Baker Mayfield's stat line last season. 4,500 passing yards, a 71.4% completion percentage, 41 touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. Paul Kaharski didn't mention that. He just said, what if Cam Ward, that was his best statistical season? Would that be a success? And 91.1% of fans who responded said yes.
Well, he did. That was good enough to get them to the playoffs.
Yes.
They won a game. Past season.
Those were Baker Mayfield's 2024 statistics.
Okay. Yeah, the year previous they won a game in the playoffs, and
The year before, he had 4,044 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions.
yeah,
But those were Baker Mayfield's numbers from last season with the Buccaneers.
yeah, I'm taking that because
It's a good season. I mean, ideally not
that's a damn
16
good season.
16
Yeah,
interceptions,
you
is a
don't
little
want
high, but
16
still.
interceptions. But if I'm throwing 41 touchdowns, 4,500 yards, 71 completed 71%, that's winning football. Hence, the Tampa Bay
They
Buccaneers.
were 10-7 last
Exactly.
season. So I did, what's interesting is going into the comments. So Paul tweeted this out, and there were a lot of replies. There are 83 replies to this poll. And it's interesting, what context people want. Someone said, what was their record in that season? How far did they go in the playoffs? And Paul responded, this is all the info we are providing in this scenario. To which that same person replied, then yes. Somebody asked, what's the record that season? This is all the info you get. Paul Kaharski said.
But it shows you that you do need to look deeper into numbers
Mm-hmm.
because the numbers might be a pretty good fantasy season. I lost my fantasy football league this year because of Baker Mayfield's huge game that he had late in the year. It was the championship game. I will not forget it anytime soon because I'm watching this in horror as he threw like 5 touchdown passes in the first half. I forget who they were playing, maybe Carolina late in the year, but he just went off. But there's context to numbers, as we know. Speaking of that, I did a little more homework on Cam Ward as a runner because I was like, surely he's got to be a better runner than I'm seeing on the stats. Remember, in college football, they only give you the net yards. So if you're sacked in college football as the quarterback for some dumb reason that they refuse to change, it goes against your rushing stats.
Yeah.
So Cam Ward has run for a decent amount of yards the last 2 years. 1 year for Washington State, and of course last year for Miami. I wouldn't call him prolific running stats like a Steve McNair or Russell Wilson or Lamar Jackson, nothing like that. But he did run for a reasonable amount. But he had a very high number of lost yards, which makes me wonder, does he take a lot of sacks? Like there's the whole extending the play to try to make the play, but if you get sacked, you get dinged on your rushing yards. So that's another one I probably need to look into a little bit deeper for context. I mean, obviously he's mobile. We've seen all these videos of him eluding rushers, making plays down the field. I'm curious, though, that would be something after watching Steve McNair and Vince Young and Jake Locker, some other guys earlier in your career. It can buy you some time and have you have some success if you're able to run effectively as you learn what it takes to be a high-level passer in the league.
And what's also interesting is that we know the trajectory that Baker Mayfield had in his career, right? That career season we just listed came at age 29. He had an up and down start to his career in Cleveland. He went to Carolina, stopped at the Rams for a hot second, then went
It was a hot second.
It was a hot second, then went to Tampa Bay. But it took Baker Mayfield until his 7th year in the NFL to put up those types of numbers. So
Yeah, but I mean, listen, it wasn't a total bust in Cleveland. It wasn't.
They beat the Steelers in a playoff game.
He led them to a playoff. He had good numbers. Now that franchise, we know what they have been for the last 10, 15. It just hasn't been a good franchise. But Baker wasn't a bust. It just didn't work out. So he goes to Carolina, then San Fran, and then all of a sudden he ends up in Tampa. And now he's a starting quarterback. And if you get those numbers, that's winning football. Ultimately, isn't that what you want? I believe Baker Mayfield is a franchise quarterback again. He's a franchise quarterback. And the numbers bear it. Anytime he's had an opportunity to be a full-time starter, he wins you football games. Now, ultimately, would he be able to win you a Super Bowl? I don't know. Maybe it's like Jalen Hurts. You add a few more pieces around him, then okay, we can go. So, but if you're asking me, will I draft that number one overall? Yeah, absolutely, every day, all day.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on anything and everything. Cam Ward, the draft, the national championship game, a smorgasbord, if you will. We will take all of your thoughts. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Willie Dunick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D-Mace Fingan and Onic 1025, 1063. The game live at Bridgestone Arena. Predators versus Islanders tonight at 7. Pregame at 6. Barry Trotz with Jared Stillman at 5 o'clock. I quickly wanted to update a story that we discussed a couple of weeks ago on the program. Remember $1,000 Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about $1,000 Bill.
How is old Bill?
He's a Florida super fan, so I'm sure he's very happy today with the Gators winning the national title. So $1,000 Bill placed $5 on a 5-leg parlay in May of last year. He had Tennessee winning the College World Series, which happened.
Check.
He had the Dodgers winning the World Series.
Check.
He had the Ohio State Buckeyes winning the college football playoff.
Bingo.
And he had the Eagles winning the Super Bowl.
You know it.
Ding.
The final leg separating Bill from a $168,300 payment
And he's a Gator fan, right?
was Duke winning the national title.
Duke.
Wow. How fitting is that? You are a Gator fan, and the only reason you didn't make the parlay is because you didn't pick your hometown team.
So here's an
Wow.
update
All right.
from ESPN. Perhaps no one has ever been happier to lose a high-stakes bet than $1,000 Bill, the alias for a Florida bettor who ESPN had previously reported owned a 5-leg futures parlay that would turn $5 into $168,300 if successful. Bill needed Duke to win the men's college basketball national championship to cash the final leg of the parlay. So Saturday night's Final Four result, which saw Houston shock the Blue Devils in a comeback upset, could have been a disaster. However, Bill sold half of the ticket for $20,250 on secondary market service PropSwap just prior to the Elite Eight, making the madness much more palatable for him. Quote, I got $20K and a heck of a story. $1,000 Bill told ESPN over text on Saturday
I like
night.
$1,000.
So it's really a
bill. I like-
$20,000 bill.
I like $1,000 bill because hey, listen, man, I'm not gonna gamble. Hey, I got a little bit. That's all I need. I'm good. Give it here. I'm not gonna gamble. You know, I'm not gonna wager the house. Just give me the 20K. I'm good.
I did watch
5 to 20K. That's a lot of money.
I saw a feature on TV that studied the booming industry, of course, of sports betting, which we know. And one thing they pointed out was parlays are win a disproportionate amount of money for the house, like for the source of the bettors. That is a sucker's bet, basically. Parlays in general.
You came
Well, what happens is $1,000 bill, and the ones that do strike lightning in a bottle, they get all the fanfare. But there's all these other people that are doing parlays that are going down every night with those. So it's not a good bet percentage-wise if you're into that kind of thing.
Well, $1,000 bill he only.
But he had a heck of a story. He got a heck of a story.
He put $5 in, got 20,000.
He got
That's a hell of a profit.
But the original parlay, as close as he came to winning, it did not win.
No, it didn't.
No, it did not.
So that's what happens a lot. You're like, I almost had that parlay, man. I almost did it. Well, almost doesn't count, baby.
Only in horseshoes and hand grenades.
That's right. The house won.
What's more, the diehard Gators fan, whose son's middle name, Donovan, is a note to former Florida head coach Billy Donovan, a recently announced member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, now gets to enjoy Monday night's championship in peace. This was written before the game. He also isn't done betting just yet. He says he has $5,000 on the Gators at plus 750 from a hedge earlier in the tournament. And he's already working on more low-stake, high-reward parlays involving Florida winning it all. So there's your lesson. $1,000 bill. He's $20,250 bill.
I'll take that. He's 20,000 whatever richer.
Yes. So
how many other parlays has he won? How many has he lost? What's his one-loss record? $1,000 bill.
Is he over or under?
We don't need to talk about that.
I think if your
It
name
might
is
not-
$1,000
I don't get it.
bill,
I don't get the feeling it's the only parlay he's ever done in his life.
There's a good
He's probably
chance.
made a few.
Yes, it's $1,000 bill, not
Yeah.
$1,000 bill with an A. $1,000 bill.
So he's a pro at this.
Yes.
Willie. He's a pro at
If
this.
you drop the R, you're a pro.
Or it could just be some little kid.
That
Got
takes
his
some,
dad's account.
Exactly.
A 13-year-old just.
Oh man.
that takes look. If you name your kid in some form after a basketball coach, that's some dedication right there.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
But you have no there's no tangible Like there's no relationship with you. I can see if you had a relationship, like he was your mentor, y'all knew each other. Then yeah, I can see you
Like little Jack, little Jack Stillman.
like little Jack Stillman. His middle name is Floyd.
It's Reese.
Reese, excuse me, not Floyd.
Not
Reese.
Floyd.
It's Reese. I'm sorry. So I can see why Jared and his partner would say, "Okay, let's do this."
How do you think Billy Donovan, newly minted basketball Hall of Famer, would feel if he met $1,000 Bill and $1,000 Bill said, "Billy, my son's middle name is Donovan because of you"? Do you think he'd be like, "Great,
Great.
Yeah, great.
Go
Thanks,
Gators.
bud.
Yeah, go champ.
Yeah.
Go Gators.
All right,
Like what am I supposed to say? You know, I mean, but hey, listen,
cool."
if that it's true when you hear something like that, it's an honor. I'm just making fun of it. But if you like, if a fan say, hey, I named my kid this because of you, or that's an honor. It truly is. So I'm just poking a little fun of it, little fun with it. Yeah. So there you go, Florida $1 million bill,
Yep.
whatever his name is.
$20,000 bill.
$20,000 bill.
And now in the next several months, is his name going to come up again for another great bet that he made, or are we going to hear $1,000 bill is checked into Gamblers Anonymous? He reinvested the $20,000.
I want to see
And
what
he
some
went down.
$20,000 in debt.
Yeah, I want to see what $1,000 bill, like they do a 30 for 30 on that $1,000 bill.
I feel like it would probably be
Like
he would
5 years
probably
from now.
be shrouded in darkness with a voice changer. I
So I made this bet.
I had a parlay on.
Don't show his face.
Don't show his face.
See,
I had a
13-year-old kid on the other side.
What is the big racetrack in the Chicago area? Is that Keeneland?
That I
forget.
don't know.
Brother, you asking the wrong person.
I know. I've only been. I've rarely gone, but I went there one time.
Horse racing?
Horse racing.
Okay.
It's in the
Was
Chicago.
$1,000 bill there?
He may have been. But what the lesson I learned
Is it
that day?
Hawthorne Race Course?
It's a big one, whatever it is.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Very nice.
I don't play the ponies.
So
I don't know.
it's a long story short, but I had my father-in-law knew the owner because of the college he worked for. There was fundraising, so the guy, he knew everything about what goes on the track. And so the lesson I learned is we're making a couple bets here, win, place, and show. Let's give me $2 across the board on horse number 8. I don't know anything about any of this stuff, right? And I know I don't. We're just having fun at the track.
Pyomai, like in The Sopranos.
Yeah. So of course I won the first race, and I think hey, this is great. And then by the end of the day, I have, no
Nothing.
money left. But the owner was explaining, he goes, there's about 1% of the people here today that study this and know what they're doing. They're professionals. And so they probably over time make money, right? And the reason they make money, because, the odds change based on you and me going to the counter and betting on a random horse, and the odd change, and they study all this stuff. So he goes, there's about 1% of the people that are making a lot of money off of people like you that don't know anything, right? I was like, that's pretty good. So if $1,000 bill is one of that 1% or less than 1% of it, take it to a bigger level. There probably are people that really study numbers and have the time to do it, invest in the time. They might win, but
the
so
rest of
many
us
other people
suckers.
just suck us.
The rest of us suck.
Yeah.
Hey, have you ever heard somebody? Because it made me laugh when you said, Willie, to make a long story short. And it was short, but I'm just laughing. But have you ever heard somebody come up to you say, yeah, I'm going to make a long story long. And I'm going to tell you this.
I have
I'm
a
gonna make
short
a short
story,
story
but I'm
long.
going to why say something in 1 minute when I can tell you in 10 minutes?
Exactly.
I'm gonna go on a different tangent while I'm telling the story.
Oh man, no, I just wondered that. Like, yeah, nobody's ever gonna walk up to you.
Right.
Hey, listen, to make a long story even longer, let me tell you this. No,
It all started when I
I'll
was
talk to
young.
you. Hey, I'll talk to you later. See you later. I got somewhere to go.
Adam in Portland texted in and said, how cool would it be if Chad Ochocinco named himself after Derek Mason?
I would think he was weird.
A caller said it was Arlington Park.
Arlington Park. That's
There we
where I
go.
went. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never played the ponies.
Yeah, I
You seem like a ponies guy.
Me?
I played the horses. We
No.
call them pony horses. The shitlings are the little small ones, right?
I like to bet on those races that they have at halftime at NBA games where the babies crawl across the court really fast. Have you ever seen those before?
Or the corgi ones?
Are the babies horses?
No, they're actually human babies.
But are they replicating horses?
No,
You
it's
let
just,
them race like
no.
horses?
They just they put one parent on one side, one parent on the other, and then the babies race by crawling across the hardwood.
And y'all betting on a race, right?
I mean, I don't know
FanDuel?
if it's legal, but
Baby betting.
365?
Horse baby betting.
MGM,
But no,
615?
do you know what I'm talking about? The little horses? Are they called? What are they called?
miniature horses.
No, they're called shitlings. Am I right? Or I
Watch
could be
yourself.
wrong on here.
We're gonna have to look up
Yeah,
baby
we-
crawling on the NBA court for Derek Mason.
Yeah, because I'm not talking. I'm saying baby horses, like the look, like never get big. The ones that never get big, but they're just small horses.
Go on YouTube and type in baby crawling on NBA court. You'll see all of these baby races that they have during halftime of NBA games. You'll waste your afternoon. Who's to say? Unfortunately, I didn't get Arlo to a game to do it. He was a pretty fast crawler. Maybe
Hey,
if
man,
there's,
y'all, that's all they're doing, betting on their babies. That's illegal, isn't it?
I put $5 down on a baby.
All right.
So
Let,
with
you,
that-
you would bet on Arlo if he was when he was in his crawling phase.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I believe in my son. $5 on Arlo. And that'll do it for us today. No more baby racing talk. Stoneman and Company coming up next.
Be love, people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. Peace.